Well, we have another cold February morning here. Got a project. This car needs a new Serpentine belt tensioner put on it. And the dealer estimate was $480, which is a lot of money for somebody that doesn't have that. So I'm trying to help them out. And I've looked at this job, doesn't seem to be that bad. I'm actually pointing at that belt tensioner right there, okay? You can see it's kind of tight quarters down here. But let's see what this part looks like. This is the replacement part. And there's basically two bolts. It kind of goes in the car on the engine in this position, okay? And this pushes down on the belt to create tension on it when it's in place. So there's two bolts. There's this top bolt, and then there's a bolt that goes through here that, this mechanism kind of pivots. If you can imagine, this is a constant distance. This spring will put pressure on it and keep this pushing down. So the way we have to remove the belt, and the way you do that is by getting a wrench on here and turning it in this direction to release pressure on the belt. Then you can get the belt off. So I have figured out we basically need a 17 millimeter wrench for this. I don't actually have an offset 17, but I think this 11/16 is going to work just fine. And for these bolts, it looks like the 12 millimeter is what's going to be required. So I haven't confirmed that on this one yet, but I'm pretty confident that's the same size as this one is. So what we have to do is get this jacked up, remove this wheel, and then there is a panel behind there that can be removed to get us access down below to the belt. And we can see the pulleys down there. So that's the next step to take. All right, I got her jacked up. Got the tire off. I put some jack stands in there to try and prevent unexpected death while I'm underneath. And now I can show you this panel that we're going to remove. It's this plastic panel right here. And it's just held in by 4 or 5 of these little push pins. So here's one of them up here. You can see when it's in place, this is what it looks like once you take it out. But when this is pushed in, this piece cannot compress. So you put it in, push that in, and it stays in place. If you want to pull it out, I just get a screwdriver underneath this inner piece until it pops out. Then the whole thing will just come right out. So we got another one down here, this one up here. This one's going to come out. I think once we remove this one, we can pull this out a little bit. And I think there's one more up in here that's holding this panel in. We'll see when we get there. Well, I successfully got those 4 out, but sure enough, there's still something in there. The important thing when you're doing is try not to break them, because you don't want to have to buy more of those or leave them out, because then your panels are just going to flat. But as I looked around, oops, let me try this again. So just bend this back, and you see there's one more up in there. So we'll get that out. Well, panel's out of the way. You can see the crank pulley right here. Here's the belt that we have to remove next. And if I feel just up here just a little bit, I can feel that belt tensioner, the lower part of that belt tensioner. And yeah, right up there. So now I have to try to see if I can get a wrench on there so we can take the tension off the belt long enough to pull this belt off. And I think we get the tension off, the belt comes off down here first. Take it off around the crank pulley is what they tell you. So that's what I'll try. Okay, we're underneath the car. Sorry about the background noise, that's my heater. But I was able to get my wrench on there, the 17 millimeter. I was able to pull this down, pull down on this wrench, release tension. You can see I was able to pull the belt off here. And here's the belt. So that's all good. So anyways, I'm gonna try and pull this bolt out now. This is the lower mounting bolt. I think that's 12 millimeter. So I'll get busy on trying to loosen that one up. Okay, so now I have this all the way free. You can see it's not attached here anymore, but there isn't enough room for this to come all the way out, so you just leave that bolt in there. But this should be, you know, kind of hanging free at this point. Is what you're looking for. It's not a big deal. It's just, you know, you can't really get your finger in there to do it with your fingers, so you just have to keep working the wrench. I just use an open-end wrench to get it off. So now we'll climb back up top, and there's one more bolt that we need to remove, and then we can try to pull this tensioner out from the top. All right, so I'm back up at the top, and I've already broken this bolt loose, but all I have to do is get this bolt off of here, and then you know, if we reach down in there, we should be able to pull that belt tensioner off of that screw, if you will, and then try and pull it up. It's just tight access is the only issue here. There we go, we got the bolt off. Sit right there. See, it's not there anymore, so I just reach down there, pull that off that post, and try and fish it out. So here we go. Okay, here we go. So here it is, I pulled it out. You can see the bolt came out with it, which is nice. And still seems good. The bearing was still good here. It's just, they tell you the way you can tell that these went bad is they're all, you know, filthy. You get hydraulic fluid on them, and obviously that gathers a lot of dust and dirt and stuff. So that's why they wanted to replace it. You know, makes sense to me. Now, I did not go with a Mazda replacement part. I actually got a Gates. I think I saw this part, you know, I think if you went to parts department, paid full price, maybe it's $185. I did see one place where I could have bought it for $107. You know, I'm not sure if that was a good site or not, but I checked locally to see if they had any, you know, other replacement parts. There were plenty of replacement parts, but the cheapest I could find was $135 locally for you know, a reasonable replacement part. I ended up going to Rock Auto, where I often buy all the auto parts that I need, and I bought a Gates belt tensioner. I have no concerns about putting Gates equipment in the car, and I did pick up a new belt as well. So you can see all we really have to do is take this bolt out of here, drop that in, and then reverse the process. So anyways, that's where we're at. I'll get back to you when I'm trying to get the belt back on. How's that? Okay, well, we got it all back together. A little hard to see here, but the new one is in there. I got the belt back on. And I'll tell you what I learned in the process. First thing I learned is when you do this project, you're really going to want an offset 12 millimeters. What I mean is you're going to want a boxed, I think we call this a boxed, right? Totally enclosed 12 millimeter that has this bend in it, okay? You're going to need that to get clearance for the wrench. You're also going to want an open end, because when you're working on that lower bolt, there's a good bit of time where you're using an open end is the only way you can really get at it, okay? So you're going to want that too. And you're also going to want, you know, one of these in a 17 millimeter. I don't know. I actually got away with what did I get away with? I was able to use, I think I was able to use I think I actually used an 11/16 to make that work, because I didn't have a 17. But, you know, and this worked okay. This is what you need for moving that belt tensioner. Now, the other thing I learned about when I was going to put this belt back on, when you put this belt tensioner in, I'll just kind of illustrate, you know, outside here, but put it in, you know, kind of put it on that spot of the belt tensioner. I'll just use this to show you the spot right here, okay? goes on that. But in an orientation that's like this in the car, right? The higher you can put this, the better, right? So it's going to be up inside here when you have it on. Up inside, kind of in this position when you have it on. Obviously it's hidden behind here so you can't see. But then what you can do is, I got this tip off, somebody else did it. You know, there's a point where you can look down in here and see the other end of this wrench down there. So what I did is I got a pipe, a copper pipe, put it down, got it on the head of that wrench. And you know, the first little bit of movement is the hardest part with these belt tensioners. But once I was able to push it down, I got lucky, right? So this wrench kind of went in this position, and all of a sudden it kind of popped over underneath this frame member right here and stayed there. Then I could come down here, grab it, pull it down a little more, and finish putting my belt on down here. I also needed a little assistant while I was putting the belt on. I needed my assistant to make sure the belt stayed in position right here and that it was properly lined up down there where it goes around the air conditioning condenser. Okay, well, this is the alternator here. The air conditioning condenser is down below. Compressor maybe, I don't know which. So anyways, that turned out to be kind of a two-person job for me. But, you know, regardless, it's done. We did test it. I'll show you a quick little video of it running with no issues, and all I got to do is kind of button this back up and get it off the jack stands and stuff. Oh, the other thing I want to mention is, this was almost impossible to video, but when I put in the new, you remember when I pulled out the original one, that bolt was pretty long, okay? And when you're putting this back in, you know, you put it in, you put this bolt on first, not tight, just leave it loose. And then you go underneath and you're trying to get this bolt into the spot where it's going. And what you don't realize is it's too long. It's really too long this way. It just looks like it's not going to fit. Well, upon closer examination, what I saw in where that bolt is going, there's actually this slot cut at it. There's a slot cut in it in this position, okay? And what you do is you just kind of drop that unit and that bolt down in that slot. And then you can go ahead and try and get that bolt started in the hole that is difficult to see. Now, my advice is when you're trying to start this bolt that's going through here, do it by hand. Be very careful because it wanted to cross thread. So you really want to make sure you've got it started safely, you know, 2 or 3 threads before you start putting a wrench on it. Because you don't want to cross thread it. If you cross thread it, you're probably going to have a big problem. So just be careful when you're trying to get that bolt started. I just used my hands and took my time. Took a few minutes, but I got it started correctly, and it, you know, it went in just fine. So that's my tip on that one. So if you find these videos helpful, I'd really appreciate a like, a subscribe. I'm just trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. That's what it takes even for, you know, YouTube to give you a couple of bucks for the advertising revenue. And I just not there yet. So if you would help, I'd really appreciate that. Bye now.